Hello and welcome back to the Tech Blackboard. This is our part 4 of our AZ-900 real exam question and answer series. Today we are going to cover from question 41 to 55. In the earlier series, part 1, 2 and 3, we have already covered from question number 1 to question number 40. So 40 questions already covered, and today we are going to cover another 15 questions. So let's get started. So let's begin with our question number 41. The question says that you have been informed by your superiors of the company's intention to automate the server deployment to Azure. There is, however, some concern that administrative credentials could be uncovered during this process. You are required to make sure that during the deployment, the administrative credentials are encrypted using a suitable Azure solution. The solution given here is that you recommended the use of Azure Multi-Factor Authentication or MFA. Now we have to tell whether MFA or Azure Multi-Factor Authentication solve this business problem. Keywords in the questions are encryption of administrative credentials. The solution is multi-factor. To tell you more about Azure multi-factor authentication, that's actually a process in which users are kind of prompted during their sign-ins for additional form of identification. So for example, sometimes you may be asked that you are provided with an SMS on your phone or maybe some fingerprint scan. So it's an additional check whenever you are signing in to some of your application or some of your service that you use. So an additional form of verification is done, and that's the use of multi-factor authentication. However, multi-factor authentication has nothing to do with encryption. Thus, the correct answer for this one is no. Coming to question number 42. Your company has an Azure Active Directory Azure AD environment. Users occasionally connect to Azure AD via the internet. You have been tasked with making sure that users who connect to Azure AD via internet from an unidentified address are automatically encouraged to change the password. The solution that given is you configure the use of Azure AD identity protection. One more exactly same question with a different solution is question number 43. Question exactly same. However, the solution says that you configure the use of Azure AD privileged identity management. So let me first come to the question number 42 and answer this question first. So the correct answer for question number 42 is yes. Yes, Azure AD identity protection is the perfect solution where you want to prompt user to change their password whenever they are logging in from an unidentified address, IP address. So that's the exact solution that you want to implement. To give you more insights on Azure AD identity protection, I will take you to the Microsoft site and let's see what it says. So on this page from Microsoft, the title is What is Identity Protection? You can read it more, but I will take you to this section which is the most relevant to answer this question, and that section is actually this one, which says risk detection and remediation. So in this one, you can see that identity protection identifies the risk of many types, including anonymous IP address use, atypical travel, malware-linked IP address, unfamiliar sign-in properties, leaked credentials, password spray, and many more. Pay your attention to this one. This is anonymous IP address use. So now you can see the question was also asking you that you should put a solution that prompts the user to change the password whenever he or she are logging from an unidentified IP address. And this is the proof of our answer. Additionally, Microsoft can also ask different types or change the language or change the option. So keep in mind that what all is provided by identity protection. So you can see that if the question takes a twist and it asks you instead of anonymous IP address, it may ask you malware linked IP address, okay, or maybe leaked credentials, right, or maybe unfamiliar sign-in properties. Then you know that in all those cases you have to go for Microsoft identity protection. Thus the correct answer is a yes. Now that we have already answered question number 42, it's already clear that the answer for this one, question number 43, is a no. So Azure AD, Privileged Identity Management, or PIM, is a service in Azure Active Directory or Azure AD that actually enables you to manage, control, and sometimes even monitor the access to the important resources in your organization. But in this case, our requirements are different and Azure Privileged Identity Management does not fit. Friends, many of you have been asking me to share the PPT that I use in my presentation videos. So, starting today, I will share the PPT with all of you, but for that, you have to answer a very simple question. You have to tell me that how many questions were answered in a yes in this presentation from question number 41 to 46. So in total, we have 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46. So for all these 6 questions, you have to tell me how many questions were answered in a yes. So put your answers in the comment section below and I will share the PDF version of part 4 with all of those who get the right answer. Moving on to the next question. The next question says that your company's Active Directory forest includes thousands of user accounts. You have been informed that all network resources will be migrated to Azure. Thereafter, the on-premises data center will be retired. You are required to employ a strategy that reduces the effect on users once the planned migration has been completed. Important that you note that what we are essentially doing is that we are migrating all the user account from an on-premise, pay attention, from an on-premise Active Directory to the Azure Active Directory. So that's what the requirement is. And the second important thing that the question says that you need to make sure that it reduces the effect on the users. So the users, the let's say the employee of your company, they should not be impacted by this migration. Now, if you remember, and if you have already seen the part 2 of our AZ-900 real exam question and answer series, this is part 4. In that, in the question number 13th, that was the same question. In that question, the solution was to sync Active Directory user accounts to Azure Active Directory or Azure AD. And there I explained in quite a detail why that solution or why syncing to Active Directory user account to Azure Active Directory was a correct option. In this case, however, it's mentioned or the solution is MFA. Now, MFA is actually a process in which users are prompted to sign in with additional details, additional identification details, as we also saw in question number 41. So, it is a extra security measure to strengthen your sign-in process. In this case, our requirement is something else in which MFA does not fit. Thus, the answer for this question is a no. Coming to question number 45. You are planning a strategy to deploy numerous web servers and database servers to Azure. This strategy should allow for connection types between web server and database servers to be controlled. The solution is that you include a local network gateway in your strategy. Does this solution meet the goal? Same question, one more. with a slight variation in the solution is question number 46. And this time the solution is you include network security groups NSG in your strategy. Does this meet the goal? So out of these two solutions, one is local network gateway or the other one is network security group. Which one meets the goal to bring a strategy that allow for connection between the web server and the database server? So let me first make you understand what is NSG. You already can relate what is the local network gateway. So local network gateway or local network is more related to your on-prem networks. So here we are on network security group or NSG, the official documentation from Microsoft. So let's read this first para. So this says that you can use Azure Network Security Group to filter network traffic to and from Azure resources in an Azure virtual network. Pay attention. It has already mentioned that this is used to filter network to and from Azure resources in Azure virtual network. Okay, moving on, it says that a network security group contains security rules that allow or deny inbound traffic to or outbound traffic from several types of Azure resources. For each rule, you can specify source and destination, port and protocol. Hope you remember the question. The question was that we need to control or manage the connections between our web server and our database server. So both are Azure resources here in Azure Virtual Network, and we have to control the traffic between them, and that's exactly what NSG provides you. Now that you have understood how NSG fits in this business case, the answer to these questions is pretty simple. Taking question number 45 first, the answer is obviously no, because it's just local network gateway. It has nothing to do with securing or managing the connections between two Azure resources. And the answer to the question number 46 is a definite yes. So friends, these kind of questions can be very tricky to understand sometimes, to understand the business case and scenarios and relate different Azure resources to the question. So what I did is I picked up some of the keywords that you can pick from the questions and then try to associate those keywords with the solution. So please mind that this is not a sure shot way of giving the answers to the question. However, it might help you a lot when you're trying to think upon the answers when you're giving the exam. So here it goes. So whenever you are seeing the word in questions like attack, sorry for the bad handwriting, then you have to associate this one attack with DDoS. Okay, then you look for the DDoS as a solution. Okay, however, if in the question it's talking more about rules, okay, then in that case you have to pick a solution which says firewall. Okay, because firewall is a set of rules. Yes, so then you have to choose firewall as a solution. Then in case you see keywords which says allow or deny, right? In this case, go for the solution NSG or network security group, as we just saw in this question. So I hope this combination of keywords and solution will help you in the exam. And once again, sorry for the bad handwriting, but hope you got the drift. Okay. So let's move on. Our next question 47 is that you have an on-premises network that contains several servers. You plan to migrate all servers to Azure. You need to recommend a solution that ensures that some of the servers are available, even if a single Azure data center goes offline for an extended period. What should you include in the recommendation? Should it be fault tolerance or elasticity, or should it be scalability or low latency? Now, first, let's understand one-liner definitions or understanding of all these terms, and then we will come back to answer. Fault tolerance is actually an ability of a system to continue functioning even in a case of a failure of some of its components. Okay, so you have a solution, you have an application, and each application is made up of many components, database and network, um, web servers, and a lot more. So fault tolerance says that you build your application in such a way that even if some of your component fails, so let's say you have a database server and that fails, so what now? Will your application crash? And that's a very bad design. So what you can essentially use, that you build a failover mechanisms, something like messaging queue. So even if your database fails, then even then the messages or interaction or transaction coming from your customers who are using that application is still getting saved in messaging queue. And whenever the database is online again, then you can release those messages to the database and let your business logic run on them. In this way, you are building a sort of fault tolerance in your application. I hope you understand. Coming to elasticity. So elasticity is the ability of your hardware layer to actually increase or shrink uh, the amount of physical resources offered by the hardware layer to the software layer. So the increase and decrease is actually triggered by the business rules defined. I mean, of course, you define these kind of business rules in advance, which governs this increase and decrease of of hardware. So this is elasticity. Coming to the scalability. So scalability is ability of your software system to process higher amount of workloads on its current hardware resources. So it actually scales up and process the increased workload which may come in your application. So for example, you have a website, e-commerce website, which is handling the customer orders, and let's say is it's a festival time and you expect a lot more orders to come than usual. So your application should be scalable so that it's able to handle that increased workload. So that's scalability. There is actually a lot of confusion between elasticity and scalability, and so if you are looking for a video, a dedicated video which describes the differences between elasticity and scalability, do mention that in the comment section below, and I will make a dedicated video for that as well. Coming to the low latency, so low latency is actually it actually describes a computer network that is optimized to process a very high volume of messages with a minimum delay. So that's what low latency is. Thus, the correct answer for this question is fault tolerance. Moving on with our question number 48. It's a kind of fill in the blanks question type. So let's read it out. It says an organization that hosts its infrastructure dash no longer requires a data center. So you need to tell when an organization, if it moves to private cloud or hybrid or public or hyper-V, uh, then it's in a state where it does not need to use its on-premises data center. So let's understand very briefly about private cloud is of course the on-prem, and then of course you are using the data center. So you are not going to get rid of it if you are moving to private cloud. Hybrid is a combination of private and public. In that case, you might get rid of some of the servers or data center, but not all, because you are still hybrid and you are still keeping your private uh, cloud. Then we have public cloud. So public cloud is a cloud offering in which you move your infrastructure entirely to the public cloud. And in this case, you won't require a data center. Hyper-V is not even remotely related to uh, what we are talking in the question. So ruling that out, we have the correct answer as public cloud. So when an organization moves to public cloud, it no longer requires data center. So you have to fill public cloud here. Now let's move to question number 49. The question says, what are the two characteristics of public cloud? Each correct answer represents a complete solution. The options are dedicated hardware, unsecured connection, limited storage, metered pricing, or self-service management. So first coming to dedicated hardware. So in public cloud, you have to pay attention, it's public cloud. When we talk about public cloud, the underlying hardware is actually shared. So you could have multiple customers using the same cloud resources hosted in same physical hardware. So dedicated hardware is not a correct option. Moving on with unsecured connection. Definitely not. The connections over the public cloud are fully secure. Limited storage. Well, no, the basic concept of public cloud, in one sense, it says that you have virtually unlimited storage amount. You can scale up your storage needs to the maximum to how much you want. So there is virtually no limit how much you can scale up. So definitely limited storage is also not a correct option. Then we come to metered price. Whenever we are talking about any cloud, it's not related to only Azure, but also true to AWS or Google GCP. So each cloud provider in public cloud offers you metered pricing. What does that actually mean? So metered pricing is a concept where you are charged or you are billed for the amount of resources that you use. Then self-service management. So self-service management is a concept where you go to the cloud portal, or let's say you go to the Azure portal and then you want a virtual machine. You just go to the portal. There is a interface. Go to the interface, choose some of the options, and then spin a virtual machine. You don't have to raise a request or maybe a ticket to Microsoft agents to bring up a virtual machine for you. So it's all happening self-service. Thus, the correct option for question number 49 are meter pricing and self-service management. Moving on with our question number 50. The question number 50 says, when planning to migrate a public website to Azure, you must deploy a VPN, pay monthly usage cost, pay to transfer all the website data to Azure, or the fourth option is reduce the number of connection to the website. So whenever you are trying to move to Azure or any other cloud provider, what you are essentially doing is that you are migrating from CAPEX, capital expenditure, to OPEX, which is operational expenditure. So you will use or consume some resources, and for that you will be billed on a monthly basis. Thus, the correct option for question number 50 is option B, pay monthly usage cost. Moving on with question number 51, which says on which layer is DDoS protection applied? Is it on application layer? Is it on network layer? Or is it on perimeter layer? So here I am on the Microsoft page, which is related to defense in depth. And it gives you a lot of information how defense in depth is implemented in Microsoft Azure or in cloud in general. So zero trust model, defense in depth, what is the layered approach is very important because many questions come from this area. So you must understand defense in depth and also understand what are the physical layers for it. Now, if you will scroll down a little on this page, you can see the section called parameter. And when you reach here, the first line says use distributed denial of service DDoS protection to filter large scale attacks before they can cause denial of service for the user. So now you can see that DDoS or distributed denial of service is related to the perimeter layer. So the answer for question number 51 is option C, perimeter layer. Now let's move on to question number 52. It says when you are implementing software as a service SaaS solution, you are responsible for what? Are you responsible for configuring high availability, or are you responsible for defining scalability rules, or are you responsible for installing SaaS solution or configuring the SaaS solution? Now, as we have discussed in many other questions as well, that whenever you are implementing software as a service, you are responsible for configuring the solution. Everything else is actually taken care by the cloud provider. Take an example of Gmail services or email services. Now, whenever you're using email services or services like Microsoft Office 365, what are you essentially doing? You are actually just consuming this service. You don't know how Gmail or any other email service is built. You don't know how Microsoft 365 works or how it is deployed, what are its configuration, how it's installed, and lot of other things. So you don't care about those questions. You need to use the service. So that's what important is. So the correct answer for question number 52 is configuring the SaaS solution. Let's move on to our question number 53. It's a yes and no kind of question. So let's read the first statement. The first statement says that Azure provides flexibility between capital expenditure and operational expenditure. Now, this kind of question can be really confusing. Normally, whenever we are talking about Azure or cloud services, they are more related to operational cost, which is OPEX. However, there is one case which I can think of, the Azure reserved virtual machines. So in reserved virtual machine, you actually book or reserve the virtual machine for a longer period of time, for example, 1 year, 2 or 3 years, and then you get a huge discount from Microsoft. So that's one area where capital expenditure can be associated. Thus, that's the reason I have chosen a yes for this statement. Moving on, we have second statement which says if you create two Azure virtual machine that uses B2S size, each virtual machine will always generate same monthly cost. Now you need to understand that even if you are spinning same size of virtual machine, B2S size in this case, it is not essential that they will always generate a same monthly cost, because there are other factors. For example, there can be other configuration settings with the virtual machines that can be different. More so, the location of virtual machine itself has a big impact on cost. So two different locations where you deploy a virtual machines can have different costs, because some of the location in Azure Microsoft are costlier than the other locations. So even if the size of virtual machine or any other resource deployed on different location are same, they can still have different costs. Thus, the answer for this question is a no. Moving on to the third statement, we have when an Azure virtual machine is stopped, you continue to pay storage costs associated to the virtual machine? Well, the answer for this one is a yes. Reason being that whenever you are using a virtual machine, even if it's stopped, then you stop paying the cost which is associated with the virtual machine. However, each virtual machine has a associated storage as well. When you stop the virtual machine, of course, the virtual machine is stopped, but the storage continues. And that's the reason that you still continue to pay the cost of the storage. And that's the logic behind choosing a yes for this statement. Moving on to our question number 54. The first statement says a platform as a service or PaaS solution that hosts web apps in Azure provides full control of operation system that hosts the application. Now, if you look upon the PaaS services or PaaS solutions, then the web apps that are hosted in PaaS solutions, in those cases, so you just take an application and deploy. Other than that, behind the scenes, you virtually don't have much control over the operating systems. Thus, the answer for this statement is no. The second statement says that a platform as a service solution that hosts web apps in Azure provides the ability to scale the platform automatically. The correct answer for this one is a yes, because the ability to scale platform automatically in PaaS solution is called auto scaling. So the answer for this one is a yes. Moving on with the third statement, we have a PaaS solution that hosts web apps in Azure, provides professional development services to continuously add features to custom application. In order to answer this question, I will take you to the Microsoft site. So this is the Microsoft site, and here you can read more about app service overview and why use app services. You can see there are a lot of benefits of it. For example, you have multiple languages and framework, managed production environment, and lot of others. When you scroll down and come a little down and you come to this section, here you can read that besides app services, Azure offers other services that can be used for hosting websites and application. So from here, from this statement, I get an idea that yes, there is a possibility to add more services whenever using app services in PaaS offering. And with that understanding, I have chosen the answer for this statement as a yes. Coming to question number 55, which is the last question for our part 4. The question says that in Azure, pay as you go is it a capital expenditure or is it a operational expenditure? So guys, always remember whenever we are talking about pay as you go or Azure in general, it is always operational expenditure or OPEX. So the correct answer is B. I hope you liked the 15 questions that we have taken in this part 4. If you think that there are some questions that are missed or you want to talk about or discuss about, then please go ahead and put your questions in the comment section below. I will make a point to answer all of your questions.
If this video has added any value in your learning, a like and subscribe is highly appreciated. Share this video in your family and friends to spread and expand their learning. Your comments and feedback give me a chance to interact with you, and I look forward for them. We will meet again in our next video. Till then, stay fit, keep learning, and thanks for watching.